Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started now with our presentation. Today, we're going to be talking to you about the Gilman Scholarship for Studying and Interning Abroad. And this presentation is part of the UC Davis Global Learning Showcase. And you can find out more information on our website about other events that will be happening as part of the showcase. I'm hearing that there may be some issues with the sound. Scott, can you go ahead, my co-presenter, and confirm that you can hear me?
I can hear you, Nicole. If anyone cannot hear, will you please put that into the Q&A box just so we can figure out if this is a widespread issue or maybe it's for a particular individual?
All right, for the one person who may be having trouble, I'm sorry about that. I'd recommend perhaps leaving the webinar and rejoining. But thank you for confirming, everybody. We'll go ahead and jump in. So the Gilman Scholarship for Studying and Interning Abroad is a program through the U.S. Department of State. So this scholarship program has been around for over 20 years. And the Gilman Scholarship is sponsored by the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs, also known as ECA, and as I mentioned there, through the Department of State. So they lead a wide range of different academic, professional, and cultural exchanges, and one of their main missions is to increase mutual understanding and respect between the people of the United States and the people of other countries. So you can learn more about other opportunities that they have on top of the Gilman Scholarship on their website. And we'll also be mentioning a few other opportunities at the end of this presentation as well. For the Benjamin A. Gilman Scholarship, there will be over 3,000 scholarships that they will award for the entire academic year. Each of these scholarships is up to $5,000 that students can use towards program costs and related expenses. And the award amounts will vary depending on individual student need, the strength of the application, and the cost of the program. Students can apply the scholarship towards a fall program, spring, summer, winter, or even an entire academic year program. And overall, Gilman says that the chances of receiving a scholarship are generally about 1 in 4 students will be awarded a Gilman Scholarship, which means this is one of the very attainable scholarships available for studying or interning abroad. Let's dive into the eligibility for receiving a Gilman Scholarship. First of all, Gilman Scholarships can only be received once, so keep that in mind. On your screen, you'll see the different eligibility requirements that Gilman has. You need to be a US citizen. You need to be an undergraduate student in good standing at your institution. You need to be receiving a federal Pell Grant, either at the time that you are applying for the scholarship or at the time that you are participating in your program. The program also must be a credit-bearing program. In addition, the country that you're traveling to as part of the program needs to have an overall travel advisory level of 1 or 2. And on the next slide, we'll dive into this a little bit more. And one of the newest things that Gilman has changed in recent years is there is no longer a minimum length requirement for the program. So it doesn't have to be a certain length. And also, virtual programs are eligible for right now. So looking at those travel advisory levels, these are the travel advisory levels through the US Department of State. So Gilman has this requirement that in order to submit your application, they will review applications for programs that are in locations that are level 3 or level 4 due to COVID-19. But if you become a recipient, the country must change to a level 1 or a 2 before the program start date. And actually within the last week, Gilman has changed this slightly, and they're now allowing programs that start on or after January 1st, 2022. They're allowing a select number of locations with level 3 travel advisories to, they're allowing students to go to those countries, and a list of those is available on their website and will be changing every week. So right now, the main thing is you can apply for the scholarship, even if the country that you're going to is a level 3 or 4 due to COVID, but you will need that country to change to a level 1 or level 2, or in some cases, a level 3 before your program start date. As we mentioned, virtual programs are eligible, and I believe they're eligible until summer of 2022. On your screen, you'll see a list of different options that are available. So you can do a virtual program as long as it meets the following eligibility are examples. So it can be a faculty-led virtual program or a virtual internship, for example. As long as it meets the requirements that Gilman has, then that program would currently be eligible through summer of 2022. Another scholarship that falls under the Gilman Scholarship umbrella is the Gilman McCain Scholarship. The Gilman McCain Scholarship has a lot of similarities to the regular Gilman Scholarship, but it also has a few differences. One of the main differences is that the award is $5,000 flat, so it's always $5,000. And another main difference is that it is only available for child dependents of active duty service members in the military. In addition, another difference is that students don't have to be receiving the Pell Grant specifically. They can be receiving any type of Title IV federal financial aid in order to be eligible for the scholarship. And as you can see on the screen, the other eligibility is the same. You need to be a US citizen, an undergraduate student, participating in a credit-bearing program with those same travel advisory level considerations as well. So this is a good opportunity to consider if you meet these eligibility requirements. So the application process for the Gilman Scholarship is relatively straightforward. There are two main steps. The first is the student application. So this is where you'll fill out information about your study abroad or internship program, where that's located, what the title is, things like that. You'll also be completing the essay portions, which we will go into in greater detail with my colleague Scott Palmer, who is joining us. And then you also need to upload your unofficial transcript and select your advisors. There's two different advisors that you will select as part of the application. The first is a study abroad advisor, and the second is a financial aid advisor. At UC Davis, we have a list of specific advisors for students to select depending on what type of program they're participating in. And for the other UC campuses, I would recommend reaching out to your study abroad office and your financial aid offices to find out who the right advisor is for you to select. So once you complete your part of the student application, then the advisors will have time to go in and certify that the information you entered is correct. And we have a series of questions that we will certify about you. Gilman has this set of selection criteria that they use to judge the applications that they receive. So these are the different components that they will be looking at when reviewing who gets selected for a scholarship. So the first is the impact of the program and destination on a student's academic and career trajectory. As mentioned previously, Gilman is really wanting to build mutual understanding between the United States and different countries. They're also wanting to diversify the type of students that are studying abroad and also the locations where students are studying abroad. So that's something that you really want to come across in your application. You also want to make sure that you're making a connection between the program that you've chosen and what you're hoping to do academically and with your future career. They're also wanting to see how well you can demonstrate how you will be impacting the community when you're abroad, and also what you will bring back to the United States after your program. They're also wanting to make sure that you are academically prepared to participate. And so a competitive applicant must demonstrate that they're prepared to gain the benefit from study abroad or an international internship. They also, as I mentioned, want to see a diversity of background and experience. So this is something you can mention in your essay. And then lastly, for students who are studying a critical need language, they also will be looking at your commitment to proficiency in a critical need language. And we'll be talking a little bit more about the critical need languages in a bit as well. All right, so deadlines and timelines for this Gilman Scholarship. Right now, the application is not currently open, but the application will reopen in mid-January. This is for the March 2022 deadline. So the deadline for students to apply will be March 1st, 2022 at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. After that, advisors have an additional week to go in and make their certifications by March 8th. So the March 2022 deadline is available for students who are participating in programs that are happening anytime between May 2022 through April of 2023. So this includes the summer 2022 programs, fall 2022 programs, winter 2022 programs, and depending on when your spring program starts, maybe even spring of 2023 as well. And I meant to say winter of 2023, sorry. Also any academic year programs as well. There will be a second cycle in 2022 in October. That will usually open in mid-August, and the deadline will be the first Tuesday in October. And so that will be for programs that start between December of 2022 through October of 2023. So potentially, depending on when you are looking to participate in your program, you may be able to apply for the first cycle. And then if for some reason you aren't selected for the first cycle, you could apply again, as long as your program still falls in the timelines designated for Gilman and their deadlines. All right, with that, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Scott Palmer, who works in the UC Davis Prestigious Scholarships Office, and he is going to talk to you about the essay components and some other application tips for the Gilman Scholarship.
All right, well, thank you, Nicole, and thank you everyone for being here today. Before we dive into the essays, I have seen a couple of questions come in, and I thought this would be a good moment to answer a couple of these questions. And then we'll stop again after discussing the essays for additional questions. There have been a couple of questions about what a Pell Grant is and when you actually need to receive it. Pell Grant is part of your federal financial aid. If you are receiving federal financial aid from completing a FAFSA, you may or may not receive a Pell Grant. This is a need-based grant. You would need to receive it either at the time that you are applying or at the time you would be abroad, or it could be both. Either is fine, but it is not a requirement for it to be both. There's a question about whether or not you are eligible if you are graduating in spring 2022, but you're hoping to go abroad in summer of 2022. You do have to be receiving academic credit towards your degree. So if you will have already graduated, then it's not going to be something that you're eligible for. However, you may want to talk with your academic advisor about whether or not there's a way to extend your graduation date to the end of summer. As I know, I've seen some people do this before, but I don't know all the logistics behind it. Do you need to be accepted into a program already prior to applying for the scholarship? I can't say how that would work at every UC, but I know at UC Davis, we've had a number of people apply to Gilman and receive Gilman prior to having actually applied into the program. So no, that is not, strictly speaking, a requirement. Is the likelihood of receiving the scholarship based on first come, first served submission? It is not. I have been a reviewer for Gilman on the national level a couple of times, and reviewers do not see when exactly you submit. They just are given a whole stack of applications, usually around 70 or so, with two reviewers who are both reviewing the exact same applications, and they will then make scores and have a meeting to really make decisions from there, who they want to select for the scholarships. Okay, so I believe that covers the questions that have come in. Or, okay, hold on. Can you apply and get the scholarship multiple times for different study abroad programs and terms? You can apply multiple times, but you can only receive the scholarship once. So you can be offered the scholarship and decline it if that's what works out best for you. And we've certainly seen that happen during this time of COVID. But there is unfortunately, they only offer it once. Okay, so I'm going to dive now into the essays a little bit, and then we can come back around to more questions once we complete that section there. So everyone who applies for Gilman is going to complete 3 essays, and if you're going to also apply for the Critical Need Language Award, which we'll discuss in a few moments, then there will be an optional 4th essay that you will complete. The first essay is the longest. It is up to 7,000 characters, not words. And so this usually translates into being somewhere in the neighborhood of about a page and a half is roughly what 7,000 characters is. This is your statement of purpose, which is a little bit different than some other statements that you may have done throughout your collegiate journey, such as a personal statement, because it combines some elements of being a personal statement with elements of discussing the program itself that you are applying to be a part of and how this is going to fit into your longer term narrative. So while a lot of times a personal statement will focus on who you are as an individual and what has brought you up to this particular point in time, and that is the sole focus, a statement of purpose not only includes that information, but then it's also going to really look at other information about this specific program, because reviewers are going to want to get a sense of not only who you are and what you are aiming to do in the future, but what is this program going to do to connect those dots between where you currently are and where you are hoping to get to. So you'll want to provide a lot of information about the program itself, because reviewers will be coming from outside of the state in which you are applying. So they just won't have a knowledge of all of the UC programs that we offer. So it's going to be up to you to discuss things like what the program is and where its location is, why this is particularly relevant for you and what you are hoping to achieve on this program, what cultural opportunities are going to be a part of the program, if you're going to be learning language as a part of this, what language will you be learning? How might you go about learning this language? So realistically, you want to be as specific as possible about the program. Is this going to be through a homestay or something else? Are the courses that you're taking, are they contributing towards your degree, or are they for just elective courses? Either of which, of course, is fine, but they may play into your narrative a little bit differently. They also want to know a bit about any challenges that you have faced. And those can be challenges in your life that have brought you up to this point in time, but also challenges when it comes to deciding to actually study abroad. And you may have a whole variety of challenges that are going to be unique to each individual. The one thing that I will really caution against here is I would not spend a great deal of time talking about financial challenges. And the reason for this is that as you are working on your application, if those reviewers are reading 70 different people, there is a likelihood that all 70 could talk about financial difficulties, since receiving a federal Pell Grant is a requirement of this program. And what you are looking to do is show the ways that you stand out and differentiate from other candidates. So any information that you provide that could easily be duplicated by other candidates likely is not going to actually be all that helpful, as it will not help you to really stand apart. So a few things that you want to consider when you're working on this is whether or not you're making a connection between your specific program and your goals, and the same thing with your country and your goals. So you need to clearly identify what your future intended goals are going to look like, whether that be goals that are at your undergraduate institution or going on to graduate school, a specific career field, or even a much longer term aspiration about a particular issue that you hope to address. Now, how does this program fit into that? Why is this country the right country for you? Have you shared the ways that you are prepared to succeed on this program academically? They do want to know that this is something that you are prepared for, that you have thought about, that you understand the rigors and the differences of what it means to study abroad rather than at your home institution. Are there ways that you are really demonstrating this through your specific experiences and skills that would show, yes, I'm ready to meet the challenges that are unique to a study abroad program? And then do you also really think about and articulate the ways that this is going to impact your future? Very easy to say this is going to be a once in a lifetime experience. It will have a deep impact on me, but you really want to think about moving beyond general ideas that, again, anyone can say, and discuss the ways that you believe it will specifically impact you. Now, the second and third essays are both what are referred to as community impact essays, and these are shorter than that first one, as they are a maximum of 3,000 characters, or roughly about 3/4 of a page. And what they are looking to do is to have you really consider and think about ways that you will impact the community. For essay 2, that's going to be in the community that you are studying abroad in, whereas for essay 3, that will have to do with once you've returned to the United States. So part of this is really thinking about what it means to you to be a US citizen. There are many parts of the world that do not have a very nuanced understanding of the plurality of the United States and what it means to be a citizen of the US. So it can oftentimes be confusing, where someone will have one particular idea in mind that this is what it means to be American, and your story might not fit into that. As Nicole was saying earlier, the Gilman program, just like many of the Department of State programs, is looking to diversify who studies abroad and where they study abroad. So part of that is so that the rest of the world can understand the plurality of what it means to be an American. So you want to think about how it is that your background or just your perspectives will really help people see a greater sense of what it means to be US citizen abroad. But then you also want to think about, how are you going to do that? How will you be able to make interactions and engagements with other people to where you can learn a bit about their culture and they can learn a little bit about yours? One way that I have found that this is very helpful is for people to really think about what they are naturally already inclined to do when placed in a new situation. That may be a skill, a talent, an interest, could be athletics or dance or theater or art or something along those lines, and think about those particular elements and how you might utilize those to create connections with other people. Perhaps where you're studying, there is a local club that does hiking and you're very into hiking. Then you might talk about how you will join that hiking club in order to learn about the local landscape and to forge connections with other people. You might think of pictures that you've taken on your phone that would demonstrate your home or your family or other things that are of interest and important to you that you could then share with other people. Those are just a couple of options, but certainly there are many different ways that you might go about doing this. So the questions here are really whether you have considered and articulated the ways you'll represent the US abroad. The way they put it is as a citizen diplomat. And this is really looking at a soft person-to-person diplomacy. And then do you explain how this is going to build up this mutual understanding to where you will gain a greater understanding of the people within that country, and where people from that country will get a better understanding of what it means to be American. And then also, do you really think about the ways that you are building out these relationships to become culturally engaged, not just to forge a connection around a particular interest for a short period of time, but how does that give this wider view into the larger culture itself? The third essay is also a community impact essay, and this is about a follow-on service project proposal. So what this ultimately is looking at is when you have returned from your study abroad program through Gilman, what are you going to do to share with other people about the benefits of studying abroad and about the Gilman Scholarship specifically? So these are really ways that you can design with whatever is in your network or your interests or your skills in order to say, I need to help with getting the word out there so that other people know in enough time that study abroad is not only an option, but it's a very impactful part of education. And for those who might struggle to see this as an option because of finances specifically, I want them to know about opportunities like the Gilman Scholarship that will help make that attainable. So there are a lot of ways you can go about this. A couple of them that I have seen a number of times are where someone might discuss a group that they're already part of on campus, maybe a particular club, where they are going to go and give a presentation to that club, explaining about their time abroad, perhaps showing pictures or bringing food, discussing why people for that club might be a particularly good fit for studying abroad, particularly if they are underrepresented in study abroad in some way, shape, or form. And then you might also provide some details. Who is this club? Who makes up the club? How many people are a part of this, so that a review panel can understand the reach of what you are intending to do. For those who may be more digitally minded, there certainly are people who have created videos, who have created blogs and done a number of things like this. That's fine. You are certainly able to do that. You just want to explain what you will be doing. But just as important is who is going to see this and how will you guarantee that this gets to a group of people so that it isn't simply a video that you've created that never actually gets seen. So you design this plan of action. As an example, you might work with your major advisor. Perhaps they send out a listserv on a regular basis, and they have agreed to include a link to your video so that the however many, let's say 500 people in your major will be able to see all about this. So again, questions you want to think about is this increasing awareness of Gilman and studying abroad? Is it feasible? This is a really important thing here to think about is you can come up with an idea, but if it's not going to be implementable, then it's not going to be attractive to Gilman. Do you have a plan? Do you detail what that is? Is your study abroad and what you experience through study abroad, is that going to be important for this project? And then who is this intended audience? Do you know where you're doing this? Are you just coming up with a project and you're hoping that somehow it comes together in the future? Or do you already have collaborations within the greater community that you would want to be able to talk about? Now, there is this other award that Nicole and I have both alluded to. It is called the Critical Need Language Award. And what this is an award that is specifically given for those who are going to a country where you will study one of the languages that are listed here on the screen. There are 16 eligible languages that are listed here. And these have been deemed as critical languages by the US Department of State. So if you are going to a country where this language is primarily spoken and you are going to incorporate study of that language into your studies, then you may want to apply for this Critical Need Language Award. This is for up to an additional $3,000, so you can get a total of $8,000, and I have seen people receive the full $8,000 before. You will really want to be very clear about what your exact study plans are looking like. They should be formal in some way, so it's usually going to be coursework. You will probably want to have things like conversation partners or other things to supplement and support the work that you will be doing. If your plan is, for example, I'm going to Japan and I'll just do some self-study, that's probably not going to be that attractive to reviewers for the Critical Need Language Award. But if you were, say, going and doing an intensive language program where you were very seriously studying the language, that is probably a little more of what they are looking for. So this essay is a maximum of 2,000 characters, so roughly half a page. So you will really need to be on point and just very direct about what exactly you are doing. You also want to connect this up to your larger narrative. How is this relating to what you are intending to do academically and for your career? If this is something that is more about just personal interest, that is fine, but it is probably not going to get funded. So instead, they are going to want to get a greater sense of how this is in some way, shape, or form aligning with your priorities academically and professionally. And so that means you would also want to articulate a specific career where you would need this and a specific ways that you will be studying or continuing to learn the language upon your return from study abroad. So I'll just share here too that for Gilman's impact, as you can see, there are a very large number of first-generation students, those who are from racial and ethnic minority groups, and they have funded a very large number of scholars in their first 20 years, and they have gone all over the world and represent all sorts of different institutions. So when they say that they are really interested in expanding who goes abroad, they mean this in a whole plurality of ways. The alumni have a number of benefits that are available to them. I think certainly things that you would want to consider is that there is this right at the top, the non-competitive eligibility. NCE status is given to students for some of these federal programs for 12 months after they complete their degree. And that is if you are wanting to apply for federal positions, there are certain positions that require to hire those with NCE status or require those with NCE status to be given priority in the hiring process. You'll also find that there is a very robust network of alumni. We've already mentioned that there are at least 31,000 students who have participated as Gilman scholars, so you'll have access to that. And then I can certainly attest that Gilman has done a very, very robust amount of programming on the back end for their alumni. So they do a lot of these seminars and career workshops and provide a lot of ways to develop skills and networking and what have you. And these can be a very, very overlooked and yet extraordinarily important aspect of any program when you conceive of where you are now and where you are hoping to get to in the future. So I'm going to stop again here before we go on to some final thoughts here on some tips to just answer the other questions that have come up here. So if you were to receive the scholarship but are unable to use the funds in a given semester, is it transferable? Generally, it is not. It is usually, at this moment, Gilman has allowed for some deferrals, but that is very specifically because of COVID. They may allow you to transfer it slightly, like from one term to the very next one, but that's about the extent of what I have seen. Is the middle class scholarship a Pell Grant? It is not. Middle class scholarship is, MCS is a program by the state of California, whereas Pell Grant is a federal grant that comes from completing the FAFSA. How can we have access to this recording afterwards? I believe this recording is being sent out, but we will have to check on that as I'm not the person in charge of that part there. Do you have to be a US citizen for this scholarship? You do. Unfortunately, it is only eligible to the US citizens. So as long as you are a US citizen at the time that you submit your application, then you will be fine. Again, another question about the recording, I do believe that it is being sent out. If we apply to the Critical Language Award, do we need to be majoring in that language to receive the scholarship? Or can we be studying the language outside of college, but explain how we plan to use language to meet both personal goals and the scholarship requirement? Yeah, that's a great question. You do not need to be studying the language for your major. So you can, in fact, there are so many different ways that a language may directly align with what you are looking to do. In fact, it's quite normal for people not to be majoring in that particular language. So certainly go ahead and discuss the ways that your major and your plan of study outside of your specific major are going to meet this requirement. That would be fine. If we received a Gilman but had to decline due to COVID, what advice do you have for reapplicants? Yeah, a couple of things. One is that that's definitely happened for a number of people. So part of what the advice, at least that I can offer, is that you've probably already put together a pretty strong application, which is why it was selected in the first place. But you'll also want to realize how much the world has shifted and changed from whenever you submitted your application initially to this point now, where we will hopefully, by the time you are studying abroad again, will be in more of a post-COVID world. So ask yourself how that might have affected your specific goals, your interests, your abilities to engage internationally and culturally. Some of the things that you might have had on your plans, things that you were intending to do, are those still possible? If they're not, what ways might you supplement that? There's a number of those types of questions that I would definitely say you'll want to think over, but definitely talk to the advisors on your campus who can sit down with you and help construct your individual narrative. There's a question here of, in terms of expenses, I should use the Gilman funds before tapping into my Cal Grant funds. Yeah, that's something you would want to speak with the financial aid office at your individual institution to find out how that works exactly. I don't work with the Cal Grant because I'm in scholarships, and that's part of a larger financial aid office, but that part, I do realize there's probably a limit on how many terms you can use a Cal Grant. So if that is a possibility, then that may be strategically to your advantage, but you'll want to discuss that with your financial aid office. Okay, I'm going to go into some last thoughts here on just some general tips that you want to really think about as you are working on your application. First and foremost is you really want to plan ahead. So this is not going to be open again until mid-January, but there's nothing stopping you from getting started on this. You now know what the essay prompts are, and you can certainly on your own campus begin to explore programs. The reality is that the more time that you have spent looking at programs and getting a really good sense about them, probably the better that's going to be when you sit down to actually write your essays, because you'll have a stronger idea about them. Please definitely talk to the advisors on your campus. They have a lot of information about study abroad programs, how your financial aid will be affected. Very good idea to always just talk with people who are there and who are experts. Again, researching these programs, do make sure that it does meet the criteria. I do feel like every cycle I see a couple of people apply where there's something there in the criteria of their program that does not meet the Gilman eligibility. So that's always an issue. Definitely spend time on these essays. I know from my time reviewing, there are essays that very much look like people have not spent time on them. And reviewers can take note of that right away. That's going to get downgraded very easily. Definitely have them proofread. I have found ones many times that were not proofread, even to the point of referencing countries and programs that were not the same as the one that they were applying for Gilman. So they were very clearly copied from somewhere else. Believe me, I downgraded them quite heavily because of this. So make sure your full application is accurate, that there's not any issues anywhere. And then definitely this whole idea of starting early is going to give you enough time to really explore what information do you need and who can you go to. That way you have a chance to find out the answers that are there. From a few Gilman scholars, some of the things that they're going to tell you in their own experience has been that if you have a compelling story that is tying together your past, present, and future, this is going to highlight that impact that the scholarship is going to have on you. You can only highlight this if you know yourself, if you know your own past, present, and where you're hoping to go. And then reviewers get a sense of what they would be investing towards for your future. Starting early, be your truest self and have confidence that you are worthy. Really, really like this here. Be your truest self. I think one of the things people often do is try to find what has worked for other people, and thus you get this very generalized kind of ideas being put in there, but nothing that is really specific to you. What reviewers want to see in this, and frankly, every application, is who are you? So being upfront and honest and authentic is always going to help you. And then having that confidence, you are worthy. You may or may not end up getting selected, but you are certainly worthy for the program itself. A few other things here, thinking about your community and local schools for that follow-on project. It does not have to be done at your university, but think about ways that you heard about Gilman, and then how did you learn about it? Who can you tell? Who is in your network that you know should know about this? Those are always things to just really think about. And then keeping in mind, if you don't apply, you're definitely not going to get this. But even if you do apply and you don't receive it, think about what are the learning opportunities that you have been able to take away from the process itself. So a few ways that Gilman would like you to stay connected. They certainly are very active presence online. So all the main social media things that are out there are ways that you can find information not only about application when it's open, but they have other information that they will share periodically throughout the year. There are some other programs though too, and you may want to look into some of these here. So a few of them that we want to highlight just very briefly. Critical Language Scholarship, or CLS, has 15 languages, all of which were same languages that were on the Critical Need Language Award that we mentioned back for the 4th essay. This application is open right now through November 16th, and CLS is an intensive summer language and culture program that if you apply for one of those languages and get selected, you'll go for 8 weeks to a country where that language is spoken, with the aim of receiving the equivalent of 1 year's worth of language in that particular time. Fulbright U.S. Student Program, very popular program. A lot of people are familiar with this one, but essentially it is a postgraduate opportunity to either study, conduct a research project, or teach English abroad for approximately 1 academic year. Oftentimes people who apply to Gilman or who themselves are Gilman scholars, once they have studied abroad for generally a shorter period of time, will then come back and recognize how international things are going to fit into their larger narrative. And Fulbright comes up as a terrific option for how to do that. So you'll want to work with the advisor on your campus who looks at this program. Certainly, if you look at the Fulbright website, you can look up your specific university, and then it will let you know who that advisor is. I am the advisor at UC Davis, actually, for all of the programs that you see listed here. Fulbright should open around April 1st, and it'll close around mid-October of next year. And then the Boren Scholarship. So Boren is a program that is also currently open until the beginning of February. This is for generally longer term study abroad programs, usually about 6 months in length or more. And they are going to incorporate language study. And then what happens there is you will also discuss ways that you will work in some security related capacity for the United States government after completing your degree, because there will be a year of service that you will then have with the government. There are some flyers that certainly Gilman makes available, and so we'll just leave this here on the screen for just a moment. So if you want to take a picture in order to go to those flyers, then you certainly can do that. Again, there's the Gilman main program on the left, and then the Gilman McCain, which is for the children of active duty military. And I will just say for Gilman McCain, this program relatively new, only about 2-3 years old. I don't believe they see a tremendous number of people applying. So this is a really, really fantastic opportunity overall. You'll want to take down this contact information for Gilman that is listed right here, and mainly because while you can work with the advisors on your campus, what the advisors cannot do is work out anything technically related to the application itself. And so as you are working to take care of something on your application, should something happen where you run into a technical glitch or problem, you will want to know how to get in contact with the program directly, as they are the ones who are hosting the application. And then finally, this is the contact information for Nicole and myself. Certainly for UC Davis students, if you would like to reach out to discuss your candidacy, happy to do that. So I'm going to open this up one last time for questions. So please feel free to type them into the Q&A chat box. Do students need to be receiving a Pell Grant to be eligible to apply for the Critical Language Scholarship Program? No, they do not. Actually, that CLS program that I mentioned, in fact, the same thing with Fulbright, same thing with the Boren, none of those require receiving a Pell Grant or any form of financial aid at all. Are there other questions?
Scott, I will just go ahead and add that this recording will be available. I believe it will be sent via email and also posted on the UC Davis Global Learning Showcase website. So make sure to check back there.
Great. And in the Q&A, if you can't see this here, if you are a UCR student, we've got a contact there for Macy Ring, who's an education abroad advisor. So certainly feel free to take a look there. It's educationabroad@ucr.edu. If there are other advisors on here today from other UCs, please feel free to put in your contact information so that your students know how to get a hold of you. All right, well, I'm not seeing any other questions at this point, so we're going to go ahead and bring this to a close. Just want to say thank you to everyone for being such a great audience, for your attention. I know this is a lot of information, but we certainly appreciate your being here with us today. Hope to see you applying to the Gilman Scholarship and some of these other great scholarship opportunities that are out there. So thank you all very much. Hope you have yourself a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you so much, everyone. Be sure to reach out if you do have any questions, and also check out the other showcase events happening today, tomorrow, and Thursday. Thank you.